Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot and a member of PMDG's testing team. So, on the 6th of April, we have once again gotten another 777 update and important 737 NOTAM, and finally we have also gotten some very nice close-up flight deck pictures. So, let's go right into it, and as always, I can very much recommend you to check out the original pictures that you can find in the link in the video description below, together with the entirety of the update, if you prefer reading it over listening to it. Alright, so let's go right into it. We'll start with an important PMDG 737 update. And here's what Robert Randazzo says about it. During the course of the week, we have been working with some customers who have been experiencing software stability issues with their 737 installations. This has led us to a few important fixes that we've bundled and pushed out via the PMDG Operations Center this evening. These fixes are related specifically to a mechanism within the 737 that controls the viewpoint while you are entering data into the tablet. Without getting into too much detail, we have found that it is possible to get the viewpoint camera stuck while entering data into the tablet, and this would wind up creating a confusing condition for the user in which they thought the airplane had frozen even though the sim was still running perfectly fine. To address the issue, we had a good portion of the team dedicated to research and replication so that the tablet team could engineer a fix that would decapture the viewpoint in a manner that is intuitive and natural without you having to manually intervene. With this fix in hand, we felt it was a good idea to push this update to you in time for your weekend flying, and that has led to build 93 being available via the PMDG Operations Center. For those on Marketplace, PC and Xbox, we are still waiting for Microsoft to complete their intake process on build 92, and then build 93 will immediately get dropped into the hopper to start that journey to you. We will keep you apprised as to progress in that regard. As you know, the Marketplace intake process does take a bit of time. Let's move right on to the PMDG 777 then. Quote, "Since we're here, I have a few cockpit images to share with you. Before going to scroll down, please remember that these images are in development shots and do not necessarily represent the finished product. We are still hard at work on fit finish, and it is a detail-oriented process." First up is the general overview of the flight deck. And I've got that one for you guys on screen right here. So, first up is a general overview of the flight deck taken from just above the pedestal. A portion of the cockpit is in direct sunlight and most is lit by indirect lighting, which shows off the diffusive quality of the surface paint that is used on the flight deck. This is a very hard coating to work with because it does such an effective job of diffusing light in order to reduce glare on the flight deck that it makes it very hard to photograph or scan effectively. So we have spent many hours building our diffuse layer models until we finally got a surface quality that would work well in direct and indirect lighting. If you look on the throttle pedestal, just below the trim cutout switch guards, the red ones, you can also see some of the surface damage in the panel face where it was clearly handled improperly during a maintenance check. Yes, I blame the mechanics. This image also showcases the beginning of some of the wearing that is currently being implemented, specifically the high-touch areas that tend to get polished by fingertips and the oils that they carry. If you look around the yoke horns and specifically at the palm grip for the electronic checklist directly to the right of the flap handle, you will notice that the palm guard is polished and shiny from the hands and oils that have been rubbed into it during the 12 years of operational life on our subject airplane. If you are tactile defensive like I am, this makes you want to bid to a fleet type that does not have such a horrid collector of oils and spooge. Yes, other pilots make fun of my habits of cleaning knobs and buttons and switches and high-touch surfaces during cruise flight. It is a thing. Quote end at this point. I totally feel Robert over here. Really, when you get into the airplane, the first thing we take is those anti-colleague wipes, as we love to call them, and just clean off things like the FCU, like the MCDU, like the radio panels, and that stuff. You most importantly also clean the tray table, but in the Boeing, there's always this strange thing blocking the tray table right in the middle there, right? But no worries, there is the table actually located to the sides of the pilot seats, but honestly, I kinda call it the low man's tablet. On the low man's table, I should say. Okay, let's continue with the update then. Quote, Vin is hard at work adding in much of the aging detail now that the other portions of the cockpit are finished, so watch for more grime and goo coming to a knob near you. I mentioned that our Survey airplane was a 12-year in-service airplane, but it is worth pointing out that this ship was operated by an airline with flight crew who obviously took pride in their place of work and made some effort not to sully the place in normal operation. The 737 we originally used for the NGX was filthy, and I still have trauma. Even with that evident care, some places on the flight deck develop normal operational wear, and nowhere is this more evident than the natural wear and aging that can be seen on the floor. Now we've chosen to put new carpeting into the flight deck of your 777 because the carpet that existed in our subject airplane was identifiable, and we did not want to force branding into the cockpit given the broad range of airlines that all of you might want to fly with. But in this image you can get a sense of the quality of the knap and etching on the carpet sections that are held down mostly by Velcro in order to give the flight deck a finished feel. The footscuff plates are appropriately worked, with the metal work showing signs of wear in places where the heels get dragged regularly. Did you know these are heated from below using the foot heater controls to keep your toes warm when it gets dark on the flight deck? At night flying jets, the temperature extremes in various corners of the cockpit and can be quite challenging to work with. Some airplane types can get downright uncomfortable, especially around your feet when pointed away from the sun, so these skid plates are heated from below to give you some sense of warmth. Now, quote end over here, just a quick thing to point out there's really a lot of colleagues who actually take off the shoes in cruise flight just in order to enjoy those heaters a little bit more. That goes from the Boeing over to the Airbus over to pretty much any airplane type. Just make sure that you really don't have smelly feet, please. Even though it is worth pointing out over here that the air conditioning systems of the planes usually circulate the air in a way that even if your colleague poops, you are not even going to smell it on your side of the cockpit because the air will just be dragged right through where the pedals are located and then down into the avionics bay and then back to the passengers. Alright, let's continue with the preview here. This is getting too much into the details. Quote, if you look at the metalwork on the right rudder pedal, you can see that our scanning even picked up the wear in the ridges of the rudder pedal, and this is present on all 4 of the rudder pedals in the cockpit. When there are some dust and crumbs in corners and places also, which really shows up nicely when the lighting gets projected down there from the angle of the sun, I wanted to veto such detritus, but the team thought it should be present since it was on the subject airplane. Okay. Last image for tonight is taken from directly in front of the crew rest station door, looking forward to the flight deck. In this image you can also see how we have modeled even the carpet in 3D as it lays on the aluminium floor structure of the flight deck surrounding the J-rails for the seats. I point that out because it is that level of detail in the modeling that really gives you a sense of depth and space when looking at the model from inside the airplane. No doubt you have likely picked up on the fact that I am showing you this image with the door open specifically to answer that question. Yes, the door can be opened and closed. Yes, you can wander around the cabin. Yes, the sounds are tuned to where you are in the airplane, and sounds that can be heard from the cabin that cannot be heard from the flight deck are present, and yes, closing the door behind you will arrange what you can hear from the cabin. We took some nighttime images of the cockpit from this perspective, but after sizing them appropriately for the forum, they became very artifacted, so I opted not to show them here. We'll have to do a lighting expose for you in video, because it has been my experience that showing dark images of the cockpit in MSFS is a bit like photographing your dog. Ever noticed that when you take a photo of your dog, the photo never seems to have as much personality as they do in video or in person? You caught that 1 millisecond in time, and they just look goofy or warped, but they never appear that way in person. Dark scenes in MSFS are the same way. In person they look spectacular, but in still image they often look artifacted and cloudy. Anyway, as in our 737, the movable lights on the flight deck, the grime lights and reading map lights can be moved about and pointed where you want them. That was one of my favorite features in the 737, and I dare say most of you probably didn't notice that you could adapt your map lights, but you can. The same is true here in the 777, and it makes for some very interesting lighting conditions on those long overnight legs that you will no doubt have ahead of you. Alright, I can hear the team making noise about the fact that I still have work to accomplish this week, so I'd better get back to the hangar. There is more testing to be done, so that we can get her off to your worldwide journeys in your new flagship airplane. Quote end. Alright, so there you have it, the first couple of new pictures. Now my personal favorite, I have to say, is this one right over here, where you can get a very nice view of the throttles, but you can also see a little bit of detailing there in the engine fire switches, in the flap lever, and in the landing gear lever, just to give a couple of examples. Now, the 777 cockpit looks really, really nice, and I can't wait to show it to you in full size. But for now, all I have to say is thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to let me know in the comments below. As always, I'm very much looking forward to your input, and with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, everyone. Be sure to head over to the PMDG forum using the link in the video description below in order to view the images full size, as the YouTube rendering quality might scale it down, and they might not look as good as they actually do on the forums. So be sure to head over there and do have a look. With all of that, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching now. As always, if you liked the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all again on the next one.